Hi kids, this is teacher Vidya. My aim is to make you all to explain the changes in the ways of life of the tribals during the British era. Have you heard the term Zoom? What does it mean? Zoom is a practice of clearing forest and burning it before using it to grow crops used mainly by tribals. After growing crops on the land for 4 to 5 years, when the soil gets exhausted and the harvest becomes poorer, another plot is cleared in the forest and burnt. Shifting cultivation is another term for Zoom cultivation. Let us learn about the changes in the lives of the tribes during the English East India Company. Before the British came to India, the tribals lived in forest and were dependent on forest produce for their food and life. They practiced Jew or shifting cultivation and nomadic herding. They did not have social distinctions and everyone was treated equally. The tribal chiefs were the most important members of the tribe. However, after the arrival of the English East India Company, most tribals were forced to leave the forest as the forests were taken away from them. The tribals thus lost their food source and livelihood. The English East India Company promoted settled agriculture. The tribal chiefs became nominal heads as their powers were taken away. The North tribals or mainstream Indians who influenced the changes in tribal life were the traders and landlords. The tribals had to depend on landlords to borrow money to buy the overpriced goods from the traders. Since they had lost their life, the interest on borrowed sums was high and had to serve as tenants until they could repay their loans. What is considered to be the best way to travel around India? How did introduction of railways help the British? The best way to travel around India is by train because almost all corners of the country were covered by the Indian railway system. The Indian railway system was established by the British to connect remote areas of their empire for trade. Raw materials were transported easily with railways to seaports that carried it reach Britain. Forests were declared as state property and all activities by the tribals were stopped and labeled as criminal. No tribals were allowed to use the wood from the forest that had good timber for buildings and homes. Such forests were tagged as reserved forests and all activities were prohibited inside them. Many tribes left the forest. Only those who could regularly pay revenue were allowed to remain. Those who remained were encouraged to grow cash crops for the company. Shifting cultivation or June was discouraged as it was difficult for the English East India Company to collect revenue from constantly moving tribals. The construction of the railways enabled the British to transport timber to the ports and also send it in troops to control over the tribal areas. Thus, they were not able to pay back the money on time. They got stuck in a cycle of debts. This led to the self-sufficient tribals becoming extremely poor over years of exploitation. Do you think the peace-loving tribal people of India ever revolted against the English East India Company policies? Yes, there were many revolts by the tribals against the British starting from the Call Revolt in 1831 until India attained independence in 1947. We will learn about the major tribal revolts that broke out in India. The major revolts in eastern India were the Kol and Santhal revolts. Central India saw the Bastar, Warli, Manda revolts, while the northeast saw the Kasi, Beel, Goya revolts. Some of the prominent leaders of the revolts were Birsa Munda, Sidhu and Kanku of Manda and Santhal revolts, respectively. The Santhal revolt inspired other tribal revolts. The landlords, money lenders, missionaries, and traders were considered outsiders or decoys. The tribals felt exploited when they understood that the EEIC and decoys had been making profit at their cost. The revolts were a reaction to the widespread created in their life by the British and decoys. The Santals, led by Sidhu and Kangu Marmu, revolted in 1855. They broke out in a repulsion and surprised the British, who were against the killing of British officers, and turned it into a war. The Santals were gifted archers. This helped them to win initially, but not for long, because the British had modern rifles and a huge army. The Manda was spearheaded by Birsa Munda, who gathered forces to fight and reinstate tribal rights over the forest. Birsa claimed to be a messenger of God and had a lot of followers. He fought against the Decos and to free the tribals from Beth Bihari, that is, the new developments wherein tribals were forced to work under non tribal people when they lost forest lands. He tried to set up a Manda Raj but was suppressed by the British and imprisoned. After his death, the revolt put to an end. Thank you so much, kids.